Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of Leadership in Bluejeans. Today with us we have Violeta Ciurel, who is a professor at the ASEBUSS Business School and a management consultant with lots of fascinating experience we're probably going to hear a little bit about. And we have Constantin Mareș, currently the Chief Digital Officer at OTP Bank. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Violeta, can you give us a little bit of in a nutshell about the professor at ASEBUSS? What is it that rules your day, so to speak?
Okay, thank you very much for inviting again. I'm teaching right now the special course in ASEBUSS, where the participants are executives from different companies who work in Romania, both Romanian and foreign, and also entrepreneurs. And the course I teach is Global and Intercultural Leadership. In the same time, I do also some other activities in terms of training, and as well as teaching, and as well as consulting for different insurance companies or other companies which are interested both about the Romanian insurance market and also globally for some special technology advancements which are taking place, and I find it extremely exciting.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you so much for explaining that. And the Chief Digital Officer at OTP Bank, what's in your day?
So it's a very interesting day because my role is at the intersection of technology and humanity. And I deal on a day-to-day with things like IT, contact center, internet banking and so on. But I also am in charge of sales units that are responsible for online sales. So we want to bring, and we actually bring, the customer experience at the next level. Especially nowadays during pandemic, customers interact more and more with the bank from their places, so this channel becomes more important. So
right, that's a fascinating intersection, I have to say.
Exactly. And not actually very natural. You don't find it in many companies, but I think it's a nice one for us.
Great. So what I wanted to talk with you about today, now that I have two people here sitting next to me who have first-hand executive leadership experience, I wanted to get your take on what's happening right now with the market of talent, where we have a lot of people who are just going to quit the job, or are going to change the job, and for companies, of course, this represents a challenge. One is they lose talent, and the other one is partly, if there's a really good reason for why people are leaving in droves, it will get harder to attract new talent. So on all of that, of course, is extremely costly.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if we would be sitting in the executive board and we just see this happening, what is it that we should be doing that maybe we aren't right now?
Well, I think it's a trend which started already more than 1 year ago. And the main reason perhaps was, let's say, the pandemics. But in reality, perhaps there were many other frustrations or topics which have not been addressed properly by the companies and not expressed vocally sufficiently by the employees, which take to this situation. In a very recent study which I just read 2 days ago in Forbes, they said that the biggest real problem for the companies of today is to recruit and to retain talents, and that's a major concern. What happens? I think that also from many studies from different countries, it comes out that the most important leadership trait which the leaders have to show in the organizations is empathy. We have different leadership styles, and still today, even if they are quite negative, the autocratic, authoritarian leadership still exists. It's much more demanded to have a new type of leadership, even if it is participative or transformational, but the more emphasis have to be put on the care for the people. This COVID crisis created a lot of problems to the employees in terms of anxiety, in terms of different mental topics which were not visible or expressed in the past, but the complexity and the big change of life during this pandemic led to completely different expectations and behaviors. So from this point of view, again, I consider that the leaders of today and the HR departments have to do a special policy in the company to show more care for the employees, to be more aware that everybody has also a private life and a family, because with the work from home it was much more work in terms of time for the people, and to accept that everybody has to have this work balance, work-life balance, which has completely different and more meaningful understanding of the days of today. The Great Resignation started as a trend in the United States, but we have to consider also that the social benefits which the people got from the government allowed them to be a little bit more faster in terms of resignation. On the other hand, this trend, it seems to come in Europe as well and in other countries, but what I think is very important is that we should not overdo as leaders or in the entities to ask too much or too hard work, and not to be sufficient understanding about the private life of the people. And if I may just say one more thing, that long time ago, when I participated in a very interesting project with Microsoft many years ago, they had a big concern about how do they attract and retain talents for the future. That future of the time is right now, has been accelerated, as I said, by COVID. The point is that a young generation is more different, and they are looking to their life in a different manner than the generation of 20 years or even more looked at their life. So we have to move our mentality and understand what the new generation wants. They are well trained, they are capable, they want to work hard, but in the same time they do not want that the whole life to be mainly work.
Right.
So more careful for the leaders and from HR, and design some policies to stop this drain of the talents, and to be able to attract new ones.
Yeah, well, there was a lot in that
Yes.
that you just replied. But do you want to pick out something?
Actually, I would like to add some insights from the IT industry, which in the last 2 years was very, very dynamic in terms of labor market. And what we noticed, that there were companies coming from states, from Western Europe, hiring people from Romania, IT specialists, without being needed to have the relocation. So they could work from Bucharest or Cluj or whatever, Timișoara, and they were working for states. And they were receiving much higher salaries. And for companies to be able to retain such talent, you would have to pay 60–70% more, which is a huge, huge disturbance in the level of the market. And we've seen indeed an increase in turnover in this period. So we had to work a lot in retaining these people. And of course, money, it's important, but it's not enough, it's not sufficient.
Sure.
So to build up on what Violeta said, we also made the transformational change on the leadership, starting with the leadership, and we talk and apply more servant leadership in the agile transformation, where the role of traditional manager is changed from the autocratic one, giving the direction and making all the decision, but you move down the decision to the level of the persons doing the job, empower them to take decisions, and trust that they will take better decisions than you do, which is not easy. It's a it's a mindset change that it's difficult, especially for the traditional macho leader that is used to be in control, in power. To let it go is not easy. So we did such changes we also give a lot of recognition to the people, because now we couldn't gather together people in town halls, in meetings. What we did, we started to organize these town halls online, and we would have celebration parties also online, sending a bottle of champagne to the people's home, have an event, pop up the champagne together, say a few words. So we try to find ways to keep the people engaged, because as Violeta said, it's very difficult without this social contact. People lose, they do not belong to a brand anymore. They do not even know the manager sometimes. There are people coming in the pandemic and never saw their manager face to face. So things change completely. So you have to find ways to keep them alert. We find we have events where we talk about nothing. It's called a meeting about nothing, just to connect to each other, to say what are you doing, what are your interests, what are your kids. So trying to keep people together. So all these are things appreciated by the persons. And I would say the last important thing is that we supported the people not only by declarations, but we paid for their psychological therapy if people need it, because in these time frames we've seen an aggravation of normal depressions or problem, anxiety, sleep depression, and we are there for the people. Other things that were really simple but very appreciated again by the people. We allowed them to take the chairs home, because in their homes they have normal chairs. They don't have ergonomic chairs, which is quite expensive to buy a chair. Right. You don't really want to do that. So we allow the people to take the chairs home, the screens and whatever. Of course, we provided laptop, that goes without saying, otherwise they couldn't do the job. But we did small things to show that we care, and these were paid back by colleagues, as Violeta said, probably working more and really returning the value back to us.
I have to say, I love that, what I'm just hearing. So it really is all those little components that together are screaming, we actually care about you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the most important message which they have the leaders have to convey, and people to embrace it and to feel it.
Yeah.
To feel it, yeah.
Do you think there's at least with some, maybe even the majority, I'm not sure, of companies that think it's not their problem, but it's the problem of the attitude of the people that are working for them?
Of course, it's an easy way out to think that the problem is not with you, but in the other party. And it's very easy to say, to blame the people, that they don't care or that they don't do the extra effort, the extra mile. In the end, I think it comes back to us, because we are the ones to drive the people in the direction to achieve the results. So it's always how you do things, and of course people are not always happy. They have their own troubles, but again, you have to be there to understand them, support them, and in the end we have to do the job. I mean, that is we work for a profit organization, so we have targets, tough ones, and we have to deliver. But in the end, it's again a team effort, and you cannot point fingers to the party, because the other three fingers point back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
On this example, that was just reminded that I think a lot of executives and company leaders, they get this intellectually, that when as a human being I feel cared for, I feel I'm in the right place. I certainly don't necessarily want to run away, but at the same time they know that they have a business to run, and they're probably under some tremendous pressures and from the market, from competition and so on, so they cannot neglect that. So how do we find this middle ground on accommodating the people and still focusing on the business?
in my view and my experience as well, I think that communication has a very important role in this process. And as Costi said before, that there are situations in which in the last years with the new recruits or the new people who joined the company, they'd never met physically their manager or their colleagues. That's a very difficult or tough things to accept, to understand, but that's a reality. And for this reason, the communication in every way, formal and also informal, even on Zoom or on Teams, it's extremely important. People, as managers or leaders, you have to give as much as you can with these means which exist today, the sense of belonging to a team or to organization. Otherwise it is very difficult, and every information you have about success of a company, of a project, I don't know, progress of the entire organization or a group, if it is about part of a larger company, a large group, are information which are important to be noticed, to be conveyed. On the other hand, what I could see, and which was extremely appreciated by the employees, for instance, organizing, because much more difficult is for the women who have also children at home with homeworks, and at the same time they have to take care of the children, cook food and also work, and it's a total mess many times. So we organized in the company for which I worked, for instance, yoga classes for mothers and children.
So they can do it together.
Because they can do it together in the morning from 9 to 10, for instance, when the children were also home, not going to school. Worked very well. Or meditation, or this kind of psychological support which you mentioned. For instance, with a call center, with a platform, which was for free, accessible 24 hours a day, and of course full confidentiality, and also breaking in this psychological barrier about, if you go to a psychologist, it means it's something serious or no. So, and educating people in a different way to accept some behaviors which before were not necessarily fully internalized or accepted. Now they have a different connotation. Training online, it's also very good, just to take person out of their environment and of the daily routine to do something different, but training in something else, in art, or we had, for instance, writing in Japanese calligraphy, or presenting a painter, or when it's a birthday of or celebration of a composer, to put something. These have or organizing, for instance, we had something very nice. Choose a song. Everybody had to sing and play and do some acting on parts of the play, and then put the whole song together and give words for the best one. Taking people for some entertainment, personal entertainment, if it's not possible in a group. Also, if you see people smiling or having a better energy, it's already a big thing.
May I bring in another idea into this discussion? Because indeed it's a very interesting question, and it's very difficult to to draw the fine line between empowerment and the responsibility of the result, because that will still belong to the top management, and you have to make sure that the results are achieved. And in my view, it's a matter of trust. It trusts you that you hired a good person in your team. And I always tell to my people, I pay you to tell me what to do, not to tell you what to do, because they are the ones that should be connected better with the reality. And I make always the comparison between a squad that is in a war, in a fight, in the field, and the squad has to take decisions at that very moment, otherwise they will be dead. If they wait for the decision from the command center, which would be me, the top manager, they will be dead. So they have to be able to act on their own. They will have better results than to call and have the decision coming from the center. And I always have this comparison. But again, it's not easy. It's not easy to draw this line.
Yeah.
But I think if you trust enough your team, and you need to have also the people that are able and willing to assume that responsibility, because it's not easy. Sometimes or many times it's easier to wait for the decision from the boss, because you just execute, it's comfortable, you do, if it goes well, okay, if it doesn't go well, it's your boss that told you, that's it. So it's much tougher for the people to assume, and again, you need to have the right profile of the people. But otherwise, I mean, if you have these people, you have to let them go, because they will do it better than you. Otherwise, you put everything at the limit of the board, of the top manager, and there are so many things that a person can do. So you have to rely on.
So the team culture that you're building, the standard that you're setting with this, is then probably what keeps holding people accountable, right? So it's that the team members, they do have certain responsibilities, but as a team they also have a goal, and although you're their manager, a healthy team holds each other accountable also for the results.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this is how you would probably also maybe weed out people that are just not good at their job.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And what is very interesting, when you have the responsibility at the team level, let's say team members that do not perform usually are very fastly excluded from the other team members, because they see that if someone do not deliver, the result of the whole team will be affected, and they do not accept that. It's much faster than you would have a manager looking, seeing, having some intervention with HR or not, and it takes usually longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see the dynamics.
What I've seen about this, that people worked harder and they delivered very good results also during this pandemic. In spite of extra effort they had to do, they took it very seriously. And I've seen it in all the countries, because I worked with many countries in my previous capacity. And perhaps not being together, first of all, I think they wanted to prove themselves that they are responsible people and they do their best. And also not to be perhaps forgotten because they are not seen physically, you know. And I think this was, let's say, in the benefit of the company and the results. Yes,
that's
definitely,
true. The question is just at what price did this come, right? Because a lot of people with, you know, back-to-back Zoom meetings, plus the stress in the background, working from home, and possibly the anxiety of saying, maybe I'm overlooked, or maybe I'm judged in a way that people see my results, but they're thinking it wasn't fast enough, it wasn't good enough, but they're not going to tell me, other than in the conversation when they fire me. So I think that might have been a huge price to pay, unless the workplace culture was already at a place where trust is granted, but it's coupled with accountability, of course, where then you would not have to have that need to prove yourself so much, where it's, you know, accepted to keep a work-life balance that feels healthy, I would say, at least. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think it's, even if you had the trust that you are talking about, the things and the pressure changed during the pandemic, because what actually happened, we initially believed that we will gain the time wasted in traffic. Actually, we didn't gain anything. We were just wasting the time that we usually spend in traffic and much more.
Yeah.
Because these meetings back to back from 9 to 5 means that they consume all your time. You cannot do almost anything during that time.
Even
and
lunch.
Usually people, even lunch.
Even lunch,
Usually people work afterwards, and we had persons working up until 10, 11 o'clock, and for a short period you can say, okay, I can manage, I will recover afterwards. But when this is never-ending story, then it is very daunting to the people. People start to be affected. I personally was very tired after the first few months at home during the pandemic, working from 8 to 8 or even more. After a period, I was depleted. I am a very energetic person, but after a few months, I was really very tired, starting to have sleep problems. And then I had to realize that this is not the way, so I have to do something else. And I started to control better the time. I started to do more sports like before, because during the first pandemic day you couldn't go to gyms, you couldn't go out, so you couldn't do anything, and that was a problem for me. And I restarted my routines that would give me the energy, the confidence, and that was then we started to talk more with people, and we realized that there are many of the people, as Violeta said, usually work more just didn't realize that they are hurting themselves. They were entering a burnout phase without even knowing.
Yes.
And we started to be more proactive in controlling, not controlling, discussing with people about this, trying to put some limits. And we did another thing. We declared the Friday no meeting day. We said Friday we have no meetings.
I think that's beautiful. I was already wondering why not more companies do that.
Yeah.
You know, that you have, when meetings are so pervasive that they sneak into every available minute of a waking time, why not either have a meeting-free day or a couple of meeting-free hours on every day or something like that. That just gives everybody a guaranteed break.
Yeah,
right?
And of course it starts from the traditional management, because we believe that if we have a meeting day with no meetings, people will be more relaxed, probably they will not work and will have problems, projects will not go according to the plan, and problems will happen and so on. And actually this was not happening, this was not the case.
But actually the work means that you need to have time for work. If you have only meetings, when do you work? After the meetings, which is at the end of the day, which means in the evening or in the night. And that happens.
That's true.
It happens quite a lot.
I know.
So,
it was. I think it was also, this effect was also labeled like the meeting pandemic. That out of a sudden that spread like wildfire. And people were even more stressed because at some point you actually also have to contribute.
Exactly.
It's not just about, and then I think what was also compounded is that, and that was the case before, but now it's just worse, is that meetings happen that shouldn't be happening. Meetings happen, take way too long time. You are invited to meetings where you're not contributing anything at all.
But that's how OTP addressed the problem. We started to train the people on how to organize meetings, and we said there will be no meeting without a subject, without an agenda, and about the expectation from each of the contributors to the meeting, participant to the meeting.
Good practice.
And we improved. I mean, we did some active.
Clearly, you did a lot. I want to bring the discussion to another aspect that's usually forgotten, or at least it isn't talked about all that much. So if we're business owners of a company that has not mostly knowledge or office workers, but people that are working in a warehouse, that are working on a production line and these kind of things, a lot of the things that we've been discussing don't apply to them. Right? Their problem is not meetings. Their problem is not, it's just, but they might be just as unhappy with where they are, and when a company that's main business is producing something, is losing people who know how to operate the machines, know all the standards, and they go somewhere else, they have just as much of a problem.
That's true.
So what's the cultural or circumstances changes that business owners like that should be thinking about today?
I think that care for people should work everywhere, no matter what kind of activity. in these circumstances, I would say that more limited time hours, more protection equipment, social distancing should be accommodated in somehow, still to do their job, but also to take this measure to protect them. And it's not, I don't think it's about paying extra or doing something else, but it's more about taking care of them, and with any kind of measures for sanitary, for personal care, should be the ones to be put in place. I've seen that, for instance, in some areas, I don't know if I'm correct or not, but for instance in construction, even during the lockdown, people were working because they had this distancing and less people around. It was even more peaceful and easier for them. But in a warehouse, or when you manipulate all kind of goods for a retail, for supermarket, that could be different. I think that the essence of the care should stay the same, but of course you have to adjust to the nature of work. You cannot stop this, what means supplies, hospitals, activities which require the physical presence, and that will always be extra equipment. And
actually in the bank we had the people from headquarters working from home, but the people from branches had to be present for the customer in the branch. And indeed it was at the beginning a tension, because we are exposing more the people from the branch while the people from headquarters are protected. So it was a tension there. However, as Violeta said, it's important about care, and we provide the people tests that they can do before coming to the office, and if they have a problem, they would stay home, so contain the spread of the virus. So this type of measures, that the maximum that you could do, because in the end we had to be there for the customer. Of course we put, as I mentioned at the beginning, we put available for customer chatbots, digital tools, and we've seen actually yesterday OTP had a press release that we have 75% increase in the digital customers in this period, because customers like to use these tools if they are available. So we did this. However, we could not avoid that some customers would go to the branch, because banking is a relationship business, so you need to have a physical contact.
But what I could see is something very interesting, the somehow benefits of the business. There were entities which were not struggling, but you know, when you plan everything for a year, projects, different types, and the ones who had the digital platforms and the development of the processes end-to-end on digital were the ones who did not have any difficulty to adjust to the new conditions without physical presence. That was perfect. For the others, and they even exceeded their targets in terms of sales and profitability, while others who had struggled for 1 year or 2 years to implement something, in less than 1 month they made it. Others would have taken again 1 year or longer. So you know, this change of conditions put a lot of pressure, positive pressure, and everything was done in a record time without having before. One thing which I would like to add to everything we've been talking about, it's about the telemedicine and teleconsultations, which it's was quite limited in the past, but since the COVID it became very popular. And also for the employees and their families, but also for the customers. And I think that's something we should try to expand more in Romania as well.
That's definitely right. And of course, the practice of, like before the pandemic, when companies, but also governments, were thinking about maybe there's something to gain from the idea of digitization. where they would have, you know, consultants come in and do consultant work for 2-3 years, and then they would slowly maybe start to put some of those things into practice. Is of course not affordable anymore, right? You can't, you cannot wait anymore, because otherwise you're not going to have an offering.
No, you have to do, and you see that companies found their own resources and the motivation and the speed to implement some projects, which helped a lot to achieve all the results, or even better. And it's interesting also to see that this COVID changed somehow the dynamics of different areas in the economy. Yes, for instance, the online commerce and courier business flourished. It's 3, 4, 5 times higher. Yeah. Of course, the opposite, it's a decrease of the physical shops. Many companies optimize their network of physical presence and so on. But it's interesting to study what happens. In the same time, we should not forget that everything is done by people and through people, and how the leaders behave with the people, with their employees, it goes down to the client. Yeah.
Yes,
so,
I'm sure it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
everything comes from the top.
I was telling you at the beginning, because my role is at the intersection between technology and people. When I talk about digital transformation, I always talk about people. You cannot do any type of transformation if you don't have the right team and the proper culture to do the change.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, And coming back to what Violeta said earlier regarding the need to adjust fast, we had a situation like that. If you remember, there was a government moratoria to help the customers to repay the loans during the pandemic. So it was a rescheduling of the loans. The customers had the possibility to reschedule the loans. And we had the law was just announced. We were caught off guard, and we had a flood of calls in the call center. We could not actually manage all the calls. We had abandonment rate which was through the roof. We couldn't serve our clients. So we repositioned ourselves. In 3 weeks, we put a chatbot available for the customers that they could do on their own the rescheduling of the payments. We didn't make any advertising, and in the end of the process, 2/3 of the customers use this chatbot to reschedule their payments.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and we are talking about thousands of clients.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of clients. So very quick adoption. If you put the technology in the right place and make it easy to use, the adoption will be surprised even OTP.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think that's actually quite spectacular that worked.
Yeah.
Most chatbots I know are pretty useless. But, but if you manage to actually put one that actually helps people.
Yeah, exactly. And we made some smart integrations, because this chatbot would not only answer 1, 2, whatever. They would send emails with the contracts. They will make the rescheduling. They will handle the signature process. So everything was there.
I think that's quite. That's pretty spectacular, by the way.
So indeed, it's important.
One more thing on the warehouse construction line workers. We talk about that they don't have not the same kinds of issues that office workers have. What's come out of a lot of the studies is that a lot of people that are leaving from areas like this, service areas, production and so on, the pandemic and the circumstances were just kind of compounding and accelerating an understanding that what they're doing isn't fulfilling. So it's not like that they didn't like what they do at all, but they felt more pressured in something that doesn't help them grow or doesn't give them any career chances. Usually it's also low pay. When we talk about jobs that are actually producing something, packaging something together on a warehouse, and everybody having their hopes and dreams, they started to look for, okay, so where do I get more? What's in the area? But also, what kind of side hustles can I start for those that were a little bit more courageous? And I'm wondering, what is it that companies that have production, that have construction, that have these warehouses and so on, what can they do to actually make people want to stay at their company?
To be honest, I'm not familiar with this market, but I can make a parallel with some entry-level positions that we have. What is important is to first make them understand that it's important to do their job well, to let them put their job in perspective, how they contribute to the overall result of the company. And when you see everything into the same picture, you get more, I don't know, you are more proud of what you do than if you don't know anything. You have the feeling that you are just wrapping paper in your example. And to also give them career path development, to let them know that if they do a good job, they would go to, I don't know, from the packaging to the finance department or whatever type of advancements that could be in that company.
Normally it should be an HR policy and a company policy about what happens with each employee, what is their development plan, training, career plan. I think in these situations right now, and not only for this type of example you gave, it's important to reinforce the company culture and the company branding, the internal branding, and to keep the team spirit. And they should be valued, should be people, individuals should be valued, should be their work and effort should be recognized. Recognition is very important. It's a very important factor in the motivation of the employee, and definitely that's a responsibility of the manager. And I think that now more than ever you have to recognize the contribution of each individual to the overall results when everybody is struggling with all the situation we are living through.
Right. I actually believe that's true. It's one of the often overlooked and actually the most easy win.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's probably not the entire answer. So like yours, so look at possible career paths. How can you teach people more things that then maybe at some point takes them away from the construction line over to maybe something that they do in an office somewhere else, or so how can I keep them interested? Because there's so much knowledge about the company that compounds over time in every single employee, and so if we give them these opportunities too, together with the appreciation, maybe we have a formula there. And you have to create in the company the culture that they can do this. We have in OTP persons that come from drivers and they are now working in IT services. How come? It's not possible. But actually, if the person is interested, invest time in growing, why not? I mean, IT can be learned. It's not rocket science. So if you give the people chances, you would be surprised how they can grow, how they can develop. And
help them to increase their self-confidence. That's also one of the tasks of the managers, yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
You know what, I think this is a good ending statement. Help people with their self-confidence, probably also through providing respect, fairness, and encouragement. So that's good. So we're at the end of our time. Love the discussion. All your stories also have been you've been a fantastic ambassador for OTP, I have to say. You're doing all those great things that I truly think they're really good.
It's a great company to work for.
A little plug. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming for this wonderful discussion.
Thank you.
It was really lovely having you here.
Thank you very much.
And then I hope you enjoyed this also as the viewers, and see you all next time. Thank you very much for watching.